Hi golfers, Nick here for Nick Taylor Golf. It's Friday, so welcome to another lesson on golf tips. This week on golf tips, we're going to talk about the grid, how to set it up. Then I'm going to give you guys some practice drills to work on to help you improve your golf. Behind me here, I have my usual mat that I use, except this time we have no grid lines on the mat. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about the grid and how to set it up. First up, let's talk about where the grid comes from. When we play golf, the club is angled to the ground. If I stick this alignment stick in here, we don't play golf with the club that's completely vertical to the ground. If we did, the swing plane would move up and down in a straight line. So we don't play golf on this angle here. So the club shouldn't travel up and down the target line. We play golf on an angle. So you can see this alignment stick here, angled roughly on the same angle as a shaft. So this is the swing plane that we play golf on. So the hands and the club move around the body in an arc. They don't, as I said earlier, move up and down the target line. We don't play golf with the club traveling up and down the target line. So I think that's where a lot of people get slightly confused. The fact that we do play golf on an angle and we're bent over to the golf ball, which is why the swing plane is on an angle. So when we construct the grid, we're basically replicating what the hands and club do around the body, but we're representing it on the ground. So when we line up the grid here, we're going to be lining the grid at an angle to the target line. We're not going to line it up in a straight line. So now I'm going to start constructing my grid. First thing I'm going to do is just line up a stick there for the target line. Then I'm going to angle these two mini alignment sticks here at an angle to the target line, like I explained earlier. So this outside one would represent here the path that the club would follow, and then these inside ones here would represent the path that the hands would follow. And then I'm just going to stick an alignment stick here in the middle. So this alignment stick here in the middle here is 90 degrees to my target line, and you can see these two alignment sticks here on both sides are kind of parallel to each other. Now the important thing is they don't have to be exact. These are roughly set at 20 degrees. When you practice, guys, it's really how you set these lines. They can vary from the different clubs that you hit. So basically, if you have a club that's more upright, then the club or these lines would be a lot straighter. Just to give you guys an example here, if I grab my 8-iron. So if I set up with an 8-iron, this angle is going to be more upright than if I set up with a driver. So you can see that the club here on the driver sits slightly flatter to the ground, whereas the iron sits more upright. So the swing plane would technically be a little bit different because the club is angled differently. Same as if we were putting. The putter is very upright, so the arc for the stroke would be a lot straighter. So these lines would be a little bit straighter. When you're setting these up, you don't have to be exact. Basically, the club should swing on the plane of the golf club. So you can see the alignment stick that we've got set up here. It's roughly the angle of my club here, and that's going to be the angle that I start to swing along. So the idea is that we use these lines as a guide for when we're practicing. We talked last week about the ball position, how important that is. Today I'm really just explaining how I construct this and how you guys can use it to practice. As discussed there, the hands and the club move around the body in the backswing and in the follow through. So the point is, guys, when you're setting up your grid, you can use anything. You can use golf clubs, angle the golf clubs at certain lines. I like to use the T-claws because I think it's quite a good visual aid, which I use in my videos. So now I'm going to show you guys how I set up the T-claws. Now I'm going to set up the T-claws. So I've got two sets here. I'll kind of leave these set up to save time. So behind me now the mat is clear. I'm going to leave the angled stick there. I'm going to angle these T-claws the same way that I use the alignment stick. So the first one I'm going to put in is the one that goes at the top of the grid, and I'm going to angle one parallel to the target line at the bottom of the grid here. Then I'm going to set my club path, which is roughly at 20 degrees. Like I said to you guys, when I'm setting these up, these are pretty much, I'm eyeballing this. I'm not getting exact angles. The angle of the club will determine the angle I swing the club on. I'm just setting these up as kind of as a reference point for my alignment and my ball position. I've got the ones in the middle here as well. So again, these would be parallel to the club path line, so that's the hand path line. Just make sure that these are parallel to each other, so they're concentric circles or arcs that you swing the golf club on. And then we have the one here for the ball position, which I explained in last week's video. So that's very simply how I set up the grid. So if you look at this from the other angle, so you can see how I've set up my grid there with the center point, the ball position, and the club and the hand path. So you guys have seen how I've constructed the grid there using the T-claws. So you can use alignment sticks, you can use your clubs, you can have marker pen on the ground, paint, whatever you want to use to construct your grid. It doesn't have to be exact, you just need to be able to set it up parallel to the target line with those sticks angled. Like I said to you before, the club is angled to the ground, so it's designed to swing on an angle. This is what this stick represents. Now, when I set up to the ball, I'm going to have the club face just slightly open to the target line, but closed to my swing path. By having the ball position behind my left shoulder, I'm basically projecting that path out to the right. So as I set up here, the face might be open to target line, but it's closed to the swing path that I'm swinging on. So as I set up here, I've already preset my draw. Basically, the draw is built in, and you can see on the screen there, a tight little draw. So if I do something in my swing, and I don't draw the golf ball after I've set it up, I've done something and I've moved off the grid. And that's why it's so important, guys, that once you set up like this, you have built in the draw. The draw is built into the shot. If you don't draw it from here, you're doing something in your swing that's moving you off the grid. So I'm going to share with you guys now how to practice to help you guys stay on the grid. So now we're going to talk about some checkpoints and what to look for. Once I've built my grid and I've set up with the draw built in my stance here, I need to try and stay on these lines. If I don't draw the golf ball, I've moved, either I've opened the face or I've moved off the grid. So as I go back here, a few things start to happen as I go into my takeaway. So I feel like as I move the club back, my left shoulder tilts downwards and I start to turn. My knee flex starts to turn and change. That's me starting my takeaway. By the time I get to position 2, which is when the shaft's parallel, you'll see from this camera here, my hands and club are pretty much in line. My club face here is pretty much matching my spine angle. That would be a square club face. My face is like that, it's open. If it's like that, it's shut. So this is quite a key checkpoint. Then as I come back down, it'll be the same checkpoint with the club face. And then into the follow through, again, the same checkpoint for the club face. The hands and the club have traced the grid lines on the way through, and you can see the face angle there matching my spine angle. So that's me staying on the grid, my hands and club path. So the way you'd start off with would be to build your grid and just practice some swings going to probably just past P2. I'm going to try and stop at P2, but I'm going to go a bit further, and then stop at P8, which is right on parallel, like that, and just chip these balls out and they should draw. I've built the draw in a setup, so once you can start to practice that length of swing and draw the golf ball, then you can start to progress it to sort of left arm parallel P3. So then find out in your golf swing what stage you move off the grid. If you start to slice it, pull it, whatever the shot may be, at what stage are you moving off the grid to why you can't draw the golf ball every time. Once you've set it up at setup, you should be able to maintain those angles coming through to help you draw every golf ball. Hopefully that's answered some of your questions, guys, on how to set up the grid. As you can see there, I like to use the T-claws in my videos because it's a very clear visual for you guys to see. When I'm teaching here in the bays at GOLFTEC, I actually have permanent pen that I've put into the mats here to give guys a good way to hit golf balls, to place the ball on the grid. You can actually put it on the permanent pen and hit off it. So if you have a mat at home, draw it into the mat. I think that's the best way to do it. Those angles don't need to be exactly at the right angle. Like I said, if you're using different clubs, technically those angles are going to be different because we're swinging on the plane of the golf club. And that's why I have that alignment stick there lined up on the plane line, because that's the angle that we want to swing the golf club on. You can be creative, guys. You can use your clubs to line up the grid. I've seen people line up a grid just on the mat, just when they're on the range, just using their clubs. You can use alignment sticks, you can have permanent pen, you can use the T-claws, you can even spray paint into the grass. So there's many ways for you guys to be creative when you're practicing. It doesn't have to be exactly the way I do it. So guys, hopefully that's answered your questions. If you've got any more questions, post them on the box below. Thanks for watching, guys, and make sure you stay on the grid.